Anyway, couple of things to start with. How have you all found it? Because I've heard London is chaos in terms of training. I heard from a guy I know who said they were queuing to get into Richmond Park on bikes, and you've got all these people learning to cycle again because they closed all the gyms, so people couldn't go in the gyms. So suddenly you've got all these people running and cycling outdoors. And he said Battersea Park has been packed with runners and joggers, and Richmond Park, massive mix of people thundering around at 30 miles an hour and those just trying to stay on two wheels. And it's been pretty dangerous at times. So London, I think, is completely different from the rest of us. And I had an email at lunchtime from a guy from the Times at Tonbridge talking about joggers upsetting pedestrians and people walking their dogs and things like that, and spitting and breathing in the vicinity of other people.
I have heard, Mark, about the spitting one. I've heard from a few people that's upset a few people, because I guess people are a bit more nervous about cross-contamination at the moment, aren't they? But I have to admit, I did a run last Sunday from kind of Tonbridge way up to Penshurst, kind of basically like short Penshurst loop with a bit of a variation in it, and coming back into around Barden Lake and Haysden, all that area, the amount of people, there was so many people. But the last week I've just, because I'm not really supposed to even be driving now, are we, to where we do exercise. I've just been running from home, and it's actually been really quiet, just because no one else is really, you just do your routes that are going to be quiet, really, and they're proving to still be quiet despite everyone being off, really.
Yeah.
So it's actually working. For me, it's worked quite well when I've been going out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard London is just a different ball game altogether. I mean, we are so lucky down here with the fact we can be, a couple of minutes and we're just in the middle of nowhere, aren't we, really?
Yeah. Hey, what's it like out your way?
Yeah, it's good, man. I mean, I ran to Bedgebury Forest yesterday, and I didn't see one person. It was literally, they closed it all down. You can still run through the forest, and there wasn't anybody there.
What time of the day was that?
It was about 10 a.m, 11 a.m.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it was really quiet. The roads are really quiet again. I only had one man swear at me when I was running. Usually three. But
because you got too close to him?
no, so there's a bend that goes round near my house, and I always like to run in the middle so I can see the traffic coming from both ways, so I don't go too close to the corner and then they don't see me and hit me. And he just started screaming at me. And
Dane, you could get into Bedgebury, could you?
Yeah, I got into Bedgebury. Yeah, it's really nice up there at the moment, mate. It's lovely and quiet, and yeah, it's good. Yeah.
But then you can't drive into it. You've got to. You
can't drive into it because they've locked the gate at the top. Because I normally take the private road down the side, and there's a few parking spots there. But they've.
And you didn't see any mountain bikers or anything like that in there?
I didn't. No.
Really?
It was completely dead. It was a ghost town.
It's ideal.
Yeah.
Have they actually officially said you can run in there, or is that you kind of just?
It says you can. There's a little sign on the gate, and it says you can still run there. But yeah, they've just closed everything down: the cafe, the car parks, and so yeah, you can still enter the forest at the back and everything. And yeah, I love it there, man. It's so nice. Really.
Yeah.
But you were planning to do, what marathon were you planning to do?
Madrid on the 26th. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
and so I saw on Strava last night you're going to improvise and do your.
I'm going to do it alone. Yeah, that's the plan, mate.
Oh my
we'll
God.
see. I'll just do a solo run if I'm allowed outside still. If not, I'll just do it around my small garden.
How big is your garden? There's a guy who did it a couple of days ago. Did you see him?
Yeah, I saw that.
5 hours he did.
Did he? Blimey. No, because he set up little water stations around his garden, didn't he?
It had like a 54-meter loop.
Yeah.
Oh
No,
my
it was great.
God.
There's a
I
guy,
couldn't think of anything
I don't know
worse.
where he was. There was a guy who did a half marathon on his veranda of his flat, which was like a few feet, and he was running up and down. I caught a glimpse of that.
Mm.
That was in
Yeah.
that was in China, I think,
Yes,
Was that China?
when they went into lockdown.
but I was going to say, I saw that Miles Weathersea went for a run around Tunbridge Wells. It was 10:30 one night, and he said it was a really strange feeling because he didn't see anybody then. So
Yeah.
it's. I mean, so I was talking about that problem in London and suggested it could be go and do reps around Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
Take
advantage of it, different experience.
That'd be
Well, that's the
amazing,
thing.
wouldn't it?
Boris will say on the news preference, you know, he'll ban daily runs and everybody would just be out doing evening sessions.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why was that?
No, I was saying that Boris will probably put a new law in place for no runners to go out in the day, and then everybody will just do it in the evening.
It's one of those things where you've probably seen that virtual road relay that was being organised over
Yeah.
the day, and it's attracting quite a lot of interest. And one of the dangers was that if you had it on one day with a very narrow window to do it, people would go to like park run courses or whatever, and it adds to the problem. So they're spreading it out over 4 or 5 days, and hopefully people will do it near home, and therefore it will reduce the risk. Because I just find I'm in total sort of a dilemma at times at the moment, where you've got, on the one hand, you want to people to stay motivated, keep fit and exercise, and your other side, you're conscious of all these people working for the national health and keeping the country going, and everything else, and people suffering and struggling and even dying. It's such a conflict in your mind of how to operate and how to go about things. I find it's very, very difficult from that point of view.
I mean, where I live is, I mean, there's no pavements, sort of within the sort of mile radius, and you do get a lot of people from the village in Pembury coming down our road, kind of on their daily walk. I mean, obviously, I love my treadmill, but I'm conscious I do want to get out and get fresh air, and there's some nice hills around here. But there's also that conundrum, I'm having to go onto the road, got people walking their dogs, going out for their daily walk. The roads are pretty small. People drive around like it's a racetrack. To your point, Mark, it is, is it worth it? Especially if I have got an alternative. It makes the decision slightly easier for me to actually, I might as well just go up to the gym, the bottom of the garden, and go on the treadmill instead.
Yeah, you're in
for
control
others who
of
haven't
all,
got that
aren't you?
luxury, it's obviously it's a more difficult decision.
You can't even get to like a football pitch area or cricket pitch area.
Yeah,
you can't.
I mean,
there's not one within.
Can I get to a cricket pitch?
Yeah.
Could. I mean, to be fair, I went out last night. It was about 7 o'clock, and I didn't see anyone walking at all. I think by that time, people were kind of back home. They've done their 30-minute, 60-minute walk, and back home having dinner. So if I am going to go out, I think I've just got to be, just time it, either first thing in the morning or later in the day. But I have to say, not having to commute now, I mean, you can't use the excuse of not having time, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's transformed my day, not having to drive to work and back. I've got another 2+ hours in my day, basically. So I've been finding that I've been able to get out for a run in the morning, kind of 7 a.m, just get out of bed and, go and do, even 3 or 4 miles, just a little run. And then you can still do something in the, I've been doing, a bit of a home workout in the evening as well, which I'd never be able to do that normally. It would be one or the other each day. I'd never get to do both. So it's actually quite nice in a way.
And then you got Luke, who's self-employed pretty much.
Yeah, well, yeah, even more so.
Yeah, you can claim 80% now, but it's very hard because people customers aren't letting you into their house, and you've got to make the jump, whether you just claim the 80% or you just try and find the work elsewhere. It's very tough, but fortunately I think we're just going to tick over and do what we can if we can. But at the same time, I still don't think this lockdowns are meant to be a lockdown. It's not essential. So I think just get the 80% and sort of back off there a little bit, because you don't want to go into people's houses not knowing either. The same scenario, because you could come away with something. You don't know. I mean, you could go to Sainsbury's and come away with something by touching the trolley. But I think in this instance, it's a lot far-fetched, isn't it? It's hard to know what to do for the best, and you've just got to listen. Really, you got to be sensible and listen.
You set up, new little kind of business thing. I saw Handy Hoops on Facebook the other day. Is that kind of you, general handy?
Yeah. Well, I sort of set it up a few years ago. I was bored one evening, so I made a leaflet, and then I sort of, over the last couple of weeks, I said to my wife that I'm going to try and sort of keep going with it now. Now I've got a bit of time on my hands. Might advertise in the next couple of months and try and get some extra work and some slightly different work for myself, because I fancy a slight change, still carrying on the electrics, but if I can do a kitchen or something, I mean, I can do things like that, things on the leaflet I can do, and it's just getting your word out there, getting your name out there, and starting up your own business is like 2 to 3 years, they reckon, to take. So I thought, whilst I got a bit of spare time on my hands, sort of tart it up a little bit, and then hopefully when we come out the other end of this, whether it's, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months, I can put a little bit of money into actually advertising it, and then maybe start doing that and break away from my dad a little bit, even if it is just for 2 or 3 days a week initially. It's something you've got to look after your family, haven't you, as well?
Yeah.
How about you, Nathan? How are you getting on?
Yeah, fine. I mean, I'm not doing a masses of training anyway, because I thought I'd actually use this last couple of weeks to give myself a bit of an opportunity to let the Achilles really settle, and it really has, which is really, really encouraging. So I'm hoping that kind of the next week or so I can actually start building a bit of volume. I've tried to start doing a bit of cycling again, because it's just another way of keeping obviously the aerobic capacity up there, I suppose. But yeah, I'm not getting too stressed about it really. I think in a way, because I've got the injury, or I've had the injury, it's kind of, relaxed me a little bit towards the thought of, well, do I need to be getting out there doing anything? And so as a result, I'm just kind of going with the flow really. My work's quite nice in that we've got set up to work from home from this week, and it's at the moment it's quite quiet, so we can sort of get a few jobs in that come in. I can do a job, and then I've got a bit of time for myself and so forth. So yeah, at the moment it's not too bad at all really, and quite lucky. Around here there's quite a few places to kind of go and cycle, walk or run if I want to. As you probably know, Becky's parents have a farm, so there's lots of land to kind of run around there, which is quite nice. But yeah, so actually it's not been too bad, but I imagine as I start trying to do a bit more running, then I guess I'm going to come up against some of the sort of problems that everybody else is coming up against, I guess. But yeah, on the whole, not too bad.
Where are you based, Nathan?
Do you know Horsman Den in Kent?
Oh yeah, I know Horsman Den well, yeah.
So yes, it's quite a sleepy little village, and from my house, basically, I think you've got about, 400 metres of pavement before you kind of run out.
Yeah.
Because,
Those roads are a bit hairy, aren't they, as well?
Yeah, exactly. So that hence with the farm being so close, it's makes more sense to kind of run on there. But it's a little bit knobbly at the moment, where all the tractors have kind of run across the grass and
Yeah.
kind of it's a bit more of a cross country track actually, rather than a race track. But
And Nathan, you're injury free at the moment? You're okay?
I don't know, sorry, I've got two people talking. Yeah, I'm getting back to. I had a bit of a Achilles. It came back again. So after I did Barcelona half marathon, it was pretty sore. I carried on running. I haven't been. It's not like I can't run. It's just I've decided to kind of, let it really settle, because otherwise all I'm doing is basically just maintaining the injury. So I've let it settle a lot. Do a bit of cycling. Done the exercises I've been told to do, and yeah, it's getting a lot better. So. I will run today, probably not too far, probably 4 or 5 miles, nice and easy, but then just try and build it up and hopefully get back to kind of running regularly, really. So
What's your views about how long we're in for on this one, in terms of lockdown, work, and ever getting back to any normality?
Yeah.
For it?
Tough one, isn't it? I mean, I think I'm trying to be sort of not look too far ahead, just from a sort of, I think, a positivity point of view. I try not to look at the possibility that this might be something that could be going on for maybe 6 months to a year. I mean, I've heard sort of tales on the news that this potentially could be something we're still dealing with up to a year later. But my gut feeling is that somewhere along the line, possibly 3 to 6 months down the line, people are going to have to. It's going to become very difficult for people because of all the other issues to do with like socializing, isn't it? People just will not want to be isolated from their families for that long, and I think there does come that question: is what will people start to take a few more risks, given that if nothing sort of improves, really? But I mean, if it does improve, we'll obviously be a lot better off. But I do feel like it could be potentially 3 to 6 months before we kind of return to normality. But one can only hope that with the things like, like Mercedes and so forth are helping out with technology, and as the more time this goes on, the more research and more medical stuff is kind of being done, and maybe that will bring it out of, make it more or easier for us to kind of get back to normality, because other people are getting on board with it. So, yeah, I just hope it's not going to be sort of 6 months, but yeah, we haven't seen.
There haven't been any cases in Wuhan for 6 days now, isn't it? I think, apparently.
Really?
So, yeah, which is quite, inspiring. And they were locked down for 2 months.
A couple of things that I've seen and worried about. One is we're a little bit ahead of some countries, perhaps, and you take something like South Africa. I saw a Sky News, I think it was, report where some of the shanty towns, just trying to get education across, and the population just will not follow what the government are suggesting, and secondly, it's very, very difficult because they're living on top of each other, and so social isolation is impossible. And that's quite a sophisticated country in many ways, and so if a country like that goes through like wildfire and it's still there, even if we got back to normality, there wouldn't be any. How could you have international travel or competition or anything? It'd be really, really difficult, So people talk about the Olympics and things like that in a year's time, unless there is a vaccination and it's widespread, they can use it in a widespread way. I can't see how we're going to escape for it, get back to total normality for a long, long time.
I think this is something we're just going to be now just living with. It will become like some sort of influenza where there will be a vaccine, but then again, the flu vaccine doesn't prevent you from, there's various strains of influenza, isn't there? You get the vaccine, it prevents you from getting one strain of it, but not the other half a dozen. I think testing is key. As I say, did I have the coronavirus or not? Was it just man flu? If I've had it, then in a way, could I be going out there work?
Yeah, it's cut off.
Stalled. Lost you there, Dan.
I don't know. I haven't researched. Is there any evidence to suggest that once you've had it, that you are you are immune from it? Because I heard rumours that if you do have it, you still stand a chance of getting it again.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Just because you've had it once doesn't mean you're not going to get it again. A bit like the flu, I suppose.
Not
I
quite,
think from a school. Go on, sorry, Mark.
I was going to say, I'm not quite clear on the testing. I know they're going to do the NHS first, but are they testing for people who've got the symptoms to know whether they've got the coronavirus or not, so that you're ill already? Are they testing for people that think they might have had it, like yourself? And then what happens in both those cases 3 days later when you go out and about, say, no, you haven't got it and you never have had it, you could pick it up anyway. So
Yeah.
I haven't quite got to the bottom of all that. I said to Dawn at lunchtime, I wouldn't mind asking those questions when the ministers come out, because I'm not quite clear on that, what they are going to be testing for. And
Well, I think one of the reasons why South Korea has been so effective in minimising, the number of people who've caught it was that how rigorous they were with testing right from the get-go. Whereas, I mean, we're only just getting started. As I say, we're only just now testing key workers. Which astounds me. I think Germany are on the front foot in terms of testing, and I think if you've been tested and it's negative, they'll give you some sort of COVID passport that you've got the all clear or something.
right.
That's a good
I think it is something we are going to be living with for the foreseeable future. I mean, I can't see my daughters going back to school until the September term.
I can't see that either. I think a lot of the schools have accepted that.
And then all the repercussion, the repercussions of that, in terms of homeschooling, if both parents are working, so if your office does open for business again, and both of you working, but one, your children are having to stay at home, how do you sort that out? It's all those kind of, sort of knock-on issues that come from this.
I think it's thing when, I say when and if it's over, as they kind of keep saying, there's going to be a big learning this is a big learning curve for us all. And I think for the government, if this sort of thing is going to continue or happen again, there's going to be a need for a better strategy or a more forward something in place for things to happen. Because at the moment, I just don't think we've ever had anything in place for this, have we? Hence,
no. We're learning as we go along, aren't we? We're kind of making it up a little bit as we go along.
I think they said something like, if you were saying there about South Korea, I think they had it emerged about the same time as Italy, and I think in the end they had about 120 deaths or something because they did so much testing so soon, whereas at the same time obviously Italy had gone through the roof, and that's just the difference in the sort of the preparation for it, isn't it, really?
I mean, the glass half full from this is, it's important to kind of stay positive, and I kind of feel like I'm almost, it's just everywhere. It's what it's on the news. It's it's just a focal point, and as it should be. And it is somewhat exhausting, but it's important to stay positive. And kind of the glass half full is, we do have this extra time now. And time actually. I mean, my daughters are only 1 week in from homeschooling, and it's been quite nice so far. Ask me again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
There'll be a few more grey hairs. But Stephen Fry did a really interesting thing last week, and he was being interviewed about, and I think he's the chairman of Mind or something. And and there are these risks of people who are maybe mentally a bit vulnerable, and they're self-isolating, time stands still, etc. But he said actually at the same time, you have this extra time. You don't have to rush anywhere. Those things that you've always put off from doing, whether it's reading a book or doing the garden, you've actually now got time to do that. Interesting. We're trying to decorate my daughter's bedroom. I can't get any bloody sandpaper anywhere.
I've got some, mate, in the cupboard. I'll post you some if you want.
Sandpaper and toilet roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
£20.
Toilet roll.
That's why it's so, you know, go on, sorry, Mark.
Toilet rolls all right now. We've got some.
Yeah,
I never got that. I just don't. You know, it's a lung infection. It doesn't impact your bowels, does it?
I think everyone was panicking that they were going to get the runs.
Important not to confuse the two though when in use.
Yeah. Just going back to what Dan said, you were starting to touch on something that I've spoken to a few people about. You know, I've done a few things where just to get word out there, and not frivolous, but just to keep morale up and engage with people. But I've always thought there's a fine line, because at some point I think the social climate might start to change a bit. I mean, I'm quite lucky that I've surrounded quite a lot by, like Dan says, positive people who are in quite a comfortable situation compared to what a lot of people could be in. You know, if you're in a flat with 3 kids and you haven't got a job and you haven't got it, you're trying to operate in a tiny area and you haven't got a garden or anything like that. It's completely, you're confined, and although totally different pressures, if you like, on you, that could change the sort of social and mental climate that's around, I would have thought, and our tension's going to shift a little bit. And what effect will that be? Because I think southern Italy presumably is, you know, different from a lot of places, but there was certainly some unrest being advertised on the TV where people were so hungry and financially disadvantaged. They were starting to get unruly and try and break into shops and stuff like that. You know, that is the big fright. Something like that could happen in certain areas, I would have thought. You know,
I think you touched upon places like South Africa, Mark. I think in those places it will be even more. I do worry about when this gets a grip of Africa, how that's going to affect Africa, because I don't think it's a tip of the iceberg yet in terms of the impact upon that as a continent. And as a continent, they are so less, financially, they're not, able to support a lot of the things that we're doing, both in terms of like the finances to help people out, but also the medical care is not there, is it? By comparison, I really, really worry about, and as you say, and then you've got the shanty towns or whatever where they're living on top of each other, and you put all of that together, and it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? It's really worrying. What the impact could be upon that as a continent is quite frightening in a way.
Yeah. So, how have you guys found the people you're surrounded with? Are they not frightened? Probably might be too strong a word, but are they
nervous?
Any of them nervous or fed up or depressed, or
I think there's a mental aspect to this, isn't there? Is the fact that I think initially, and this is how we don't know how things are going to pan out, but initially I think there is that thought of is just try and remain positive, try and sort of get a routine going, that sort of thing. But I think over the course of time, whether or not that be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then it might extend to 6 weeks and so forth. If you're continually being restricted, which is kind of what we are, and normality can't ensue, there is a tendency to start thinking a little bit inwardly, I think. And I think certainly I'm quite lucky that a lot of people I'm around are still quite positive and quite, they've got quite a lot of freedom at the moment, so they're making the most of the fact they've got extra time, which is great. But I certainly know my parents that are basically just got each other at the moment, and then in their 70s and 80s, they are getting to that point where they're getting quite sad because friends, family. I'm one of 5 boys, and my mum can't see any of us, and it does take a toll on her, I think. And I don't think she's alone in that. I think there'll be a lot of other people that, as time goes on and the distancing really starts to get a grip, I think that's when it's going to really. I think we might see other changes happen in that respect. people perhaps willing to
I
organise these sort of things, you know, meetups and so forth.
mean, again, it goes back to the testing, doesn't it? I mean, you know, I'm not seeing my parents because, you know, they are older. You know, my father's had an operation on one of his lungs, so he's, you know, he's kind of at risk. And, you know, the last thing you want to do is, you know, be a carrier and potentially give it to him, and where, you know, obviously, you know, the consequences are that much greater, you know. But, you know, thank goodness, you know, I mean, modern technology, you know, what we're doing right now. I mean, imagine if this had happened even 10 years ago, you know, in terms of, you know, self-isolation and not being able to communicate with people. You know, we've got Zoom, we've got FaceTime, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's far from ideal, but again, glass half full, you know, it could be an awful lot worse. And also, you know, I've got to say, you know, living in London, you know, I got dragged down here sort of 2 or 3 years ago. I've got to say, thank goodness we live here, just in terms of space, you know, and being able to go for a walk and not be worried about, you know, seeing too many people out on the roads or on the street. You can get out, you know, get some space, get some air, you know, kids can run around in the garden. To Mark's point, yeah, if you're in a built up, densely populated area and you're in a 1-bedroom flat with 3 or 4 other people, it's going to get a little bit stressful, I can imagine.
Oh God, yeah, completely. I think we're very lucky where we live.
Do any of you find that just like, I mean, at the moment it's quite new, but do you guys find that just running on your own all the time is impacting your feelings towards running at all? Because for me, I've always enjoyed running with other people. When I run too much, you know, and I find it a little bit demotivating. And you know, I don't know if that's something, Mark, that's a theme amongst some of the other athletes in the club as well.
Well, yeah, it's that's really good, because I was going to say how you're coping with the running and how that fits in with the rest of your life. But it's funny, you know, because a few of you were posting your photographs out in the hail yesterday, and you know how tough it was and all this, that, and the other. And I, of course, being my age, and back in the day, we didn't have mobile phones or anything like that. And I'll just be, first of all, why are you going for a run with your mobile phones? Secondly, why are you making a fuss over bad weather? I mean, we just get on with it. And that's how, but times have changed. So there's the flip side of that, is you're motivating others to do it as well. And so again, in your head, you're thinking, you know, what's the right and wrong? How should we go about it? And I think that all helps, that feeling of you're part of the running fraternity. So you're all doing it, even if you're on your own, sort of thing. Which is a lot of what we've been about anyway, isn't it? Over the years.
Luke, you're like a magic man. You're
got 2
I'm just going back onto my phone.
All right. Okay. You're there now.
Got it.
But I think actually, you know, the running on your own. Yeah, I've definitely. When I started running, all I ever did was run on my own. And when I joined the club, you get so used to running with other people that suddenly going out on your own feels a lot more of a chore than it used to. But actually, I think still being able to run is probably the one thing that is one of the main things that keeps your spirits up, isn't it? I think you get that satisfied feeling of, you know, coming back from a run where you've really kind of exerted yourself. And then, you know, actually, okay, if I am going to be cooped up for the rest of the day, at least I've gone out, I've worked really hard. I can actually almost deserve to now sit down and do nothing for the rest of the day. It kind of takes away a bit of the frustration that I would otherwise feel. Because, you know, I hate being sat down all day and not doing anything. It drives me mad.
Yeah.
But the running's definitely dampening that feeling, I have to say.
I like to think that's how a lot of people think. I was talking to Alex Crockford yesterday, and she sent her weekly summary through, and it was a pretty solid week she'd done. And I said, what's motivating? In fact, you just enjoy going for a run and getting out there. or is it having an effect? The fact suddenly you haven't got any targets, you haven't got any races you can really focus in on, anything like that. And she said, well, I just enjoy going out for a run, so I'm going to do it. And exactly what you were saying there, fit it around her day, and having that little bit more time to do it in some ways makes it easier, you know.
Oh, definitely, Mark, definitely.
I mean, looking on Strava, I mean, it feels like generally everyone is keeping it going, and if anything, it looks like mileage is actually going up.
Yeah.
You know, people are taking advantage of this extra time, and you know, I mean, I got up to an almighty 45 miles last week, which is no Michael Ellis, that's for sure. He does that on a Monday morning.
110 was it or something like that?
But it's the most I've done in 3 months, I think. You know, and I've given myself an aim to get to 60 within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Still, it's a decent amount of miles, I'd say.
Yeah,
You know.
but I kind of go in. Let's make the most of this time. Do a couple of double runs. Nothing particularly structured. Just getting out and blowing the cobwebs off.
I think
I find sometimes if I'm really structured, I get in my own way of kind of my own routine. Whereas if you're just doing aerobic mileage, and then I don't know, and then you don't push yourself trying to do too many speed sessions. You know, you only maybe do 1 speed session throughout the week, and then the next week you'll do 2, and then just like mix it. It's easier to kind of flow, isn't it, when there's
no pressure.
I think
yeah.
I've said to a few people, keep the volume up or get it up, but do things that you enjoy, because you've got to stay motivated. So don't feel you've got to go and smash like 5 times a mile off a minute recovery at a really fast pace and think, oh, what am I doing it for? Go and do some fartlek, or be out there for about an hour doing some fartlek, go hard up the hills or whatever. And then I was talking to somebody else who's got guys who might be doing a marathon maybe in a couple of years' time. They're relatively young and aiming at a marathon. Just getting used to doing longer runs, once a week, say, at a good pace, rather than your long run being easy. Just experiment a bit, see how you feel at that sort of level, and things like that. Take the opportunity to try things. Work on the weak areas in terms of your injuries with core or prehab exercises and things like that. Where it's an opportunity to try a few things sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, I'm sorry, I have to jump out here because I've got to make a call for work. I'm sorry.
That was good chat though. I've been recording. I've been recording. Do you want me to take the bit where Matt's talking about his work? Take that out.
Yes, please. Could you please, Mark?
What's Nathan?
Please do.
Becky's come in, but she's gone away again.
Right. We'll leave it there because I think we've been going pretty much an hour almost, so it's pretty good.
Good to see you guys. Anyway.
Take that out.
Yeah, great to see you all.
Take care.
Okay.
Let's get another one in the diary, maybe in a week or 2 or something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Keep safe, everyone.
Yeah, you guys.
Then we can go on treadmill runs together.
Yeah. Cheers, then.
Good
night, guys.
Bye.
Good night, guys.